Okay, we're going to go over the epithelial tissue self-quiz. This is a way to quiz yourself to make sure that you know everything to prepare for your quiz over the tissues and for your practical number 2. Okay, on the first picture here, it says identify the big tissue category. The big tissue category here would be epithelial or epithelium. Identify the specific tissue. If you'll notice here, you have one row of cells one row of nuclei right here, one row of nuclei right here. So being you have more than one row of nuclei, you have more than one layer of cells. So the first name would be stratified. These are tall cells. You can see they're going like this, tall rectangles. So the middle name would be columnar. So the specific tissue would be stratified, columnar, epithelial. Then you have to, number 3, identify these cells here. Those cells are stem cells or basal cells. And stem cells or basal cells sit on this structure right here. That structure separates the epithelial tissues from the connective tissues. That structure right there is called the basement membrane. So on the computer, on the microscopes, on your practicals, there will be an arrow and it'll ask you one of 2 questions. It'll either say identify the cell or identify the structure, and you can't tell which one of those 2 it's pointing to because it's pointing to the very bottom right there on that line. So if it says identify the structure, it's going to be the basement membrane. And if it says identify the cell, it's going to be stem cells or basal cells. Going to the next one here. This says identify the big tissue category. The big tissue category is going to be epithelial or epithelium. Identify the specific tissue. You can see multiple layers here, so it's definitely going to be stratified. And you're looking at the cell shapes up here at the top. Those are squash cells, so it's going to be squamous. So the specific tissue is going to be stratified, squamous, epithelial. Identify these cells down here. These cells are going to be your stem cells or your basal cells. We can also have a pointer and say identify this structure right here. That structure would be the basement membrane. So again, make sure if there's an arrow pointing in here, you read the question carefully. If it says identify the cells, it's stem cells or basal cells. If it says identify the structure, it's asking for the basement membrane. I know I'm repeating that, but I'm trying to help y'all make sure that you answer the question correctly. Okay, this tissue right here, number 7, number 8, it says identify the big tissue category. The big tissue category is going to be epithelial or epithelium. And number 8, identify the specific tissue. You're going to see that in this circle, there's only one row of nuclei. Only one row of nuclei. So it's going to be simple. And remember, your cuboidals are going to be seen in oval shapes or ovals or circles because you're looking down a tubule. So the specific tissue here is simple cuboidal epithelium. And if I said identify this structure here, I'm pointing at one of those dots. That structure is called a nucleus. Now, tissue that we're talking about in 9 through 12 here. Identify the big tissue category is going to be epithelial or epithelium. Identify the specific tissue is going to be pseudo, stratified, columnar, epithelium. You know that it's pseudo-stratified because when you look at it, it looks extremely messy or extremely chaotic. And that clues you in right there that this is pseudo-stratified. On number 11, it says identify those cells. Those cells would be your goblet cells. Remember, goblet cells produce mucus. And number 12 says identify the structure. It's talking about the little eyelash structures on top. Those structures are called cilia, C-I-L-I-A. If I had another arrow pointed down here and said identify this structure, you would tell me basement membrane. Going on to the next one here, 13, 14, 15. In this one, identify the big tissue category is going to be epithelial or epithelium. Identify the specific tissue is going to be stratified, cuboidal, epithelium. It's stratified because you can see here, there's a row of nuclei here, a row of nuclei here, and a row of nuclei here. So it has multiple layers, so that makes it stratified. And remember, cuboidal you're going to see as ovals or circles. Number 15, identify these cells out here. These cells out here are going to be your basal or stem cells. And if I asked you to identify this structure right here, that structure right there, whoops, is going to be your basement membrane. So your stem cells or basal cells will sit on that basement membrane. This one right here, identify the big tissue category is going to be simple squamous epithelium. Identify the big tissue category is going to be epithelium or epithelial. The specific tissue category is going to be simple squamous epithelium. You know it's simple squamous because it looks like fried eggs. So here is one fried egg with the yolk in it. Okay, that's that yolk part right there, that's actually the nucleus. But if it looks like a fried egg, we know that it is simple squamous epithelium. The next one here in 18 and 19, this is big tissue category epithelial or epithelium. Number 19, the specific tissue is going to be simple columnar epithelium. Simple because it only has one row of nuclei, therefore only one row of cells. And columnar because tall rectangular cells. This one you can always identify because it's a lot neater than the other columnar tissues we have in this group. This tissue here in 2021, the big tissue category is going to be epithelial or epithelium, and the specific tissue is going to be transitional epithelium. Remember, this is the rule breaker. This is the only one that doesn't have a first, middle, and last name. You know it is transitional because you have these fluffy scalloped tops to it. When you have those fluffy scalloped tops, clues you in that this is going to be transitional epithelium. And then you'll see the answers are down here at the bottom, and I'm going to try to attach this self-quiz to this video.